Well, listeners, punk legends, the Menzingers, are coming back to Australia for a very, very special tour. And we thought today to find out a little bit more about this tour, we'd actually get one of the members of the band on the phone to chat a little bit about it. Welcome to the program, Greg.
Hey, thank you for that incredible introduction, and yeah, thanks for having me.
No worries. Now, mate, you must be so excited about this tour because so many tickets have sold that venues have had to be upgraded and things like that. Tell us a little bit about how you feel about heading back to Australia this time around.
I mean, yeah, it's absolutely incredible. The last time we were there was 4 years ago, right before the pandemic started, and it almost felt like the trip was cut short. We got all four shows in, but we had to leave immediately. So this is kind of like the redemption. It feels like, and yeah, just seeing the shows sell out and venues upgraded and the whole thing, like that's a really really amazing feeling. It's an honor to be able to travel that far, and to play shows and to have that many people come out is awesome.
That COVID time was such a weird time. I was traveling at that time as well, and it was just, I don't know, it was something that felt like out of a science fiction book or a science fiction film.
Yeah.
What was that like for you guys being in a different country as the pandemic kind of started?
It was easily one of the craziest experiences we've ever had as a band, and I'm not saying that like I'm actually mean that. Like, I'm not lying here. We once we landed, we knew things were kind of weird in the States, and then every single day just got weirder and weirder. But things weren't that crazy in Australia yet. But by the last show, we were in Melbourne, and then that's when things were like, we should get home. Like, we may get stuck here. And the government was changing their laws, and we were supposed to fly to New Zealand, and they closed the border, so we just had to buy flights home the next day, and we just did anything we could to get home. And so it was really surreal and it was crazy. But in that, like, the last show was in Melbourne, and it is absolutely one of the best shows we've ever played. I think everyone in the room knew that this was going to be put on pause for a long time. So that show really means a lot to me. So I'm excited to get back to Australia and to have a tour without all of that baggage.
Definitely. Like, you're a band that tours a lot as well. You do a lot of shows. That whole pandemic must have been a weird time once you got back to the States as well, not being able to do shows. How did you guys spend that time?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we didn't play a show for like a year and a half, and yeah, that was really difficult. So we wrote a lot of music. We did an acoustic record from our own homes. We would record in our own studios and then send it to each other on Dropbox. And it was an absurd situation, but it was a way to stay creative and engaged with the band, even when we couldn't tour. And yeah, just tried to stay sane. And it was nice to. Listen, none of it was nice, but there is some world where it was nice because we tour so much too. We'll never stop touring, and having something tell us that hey guys, it's time to take a break. I think it was really good for the band creatively and mentally, and just for our own relationships too, to just be like, hey, world is crazy, like let's appreciate all this and like slow down a little bit. So yeah, it was an absurd time.
Have you found that crowds have been different since the pandemic? Because I've noticed here in Australia that I think a lot of people, myself included, suddenly realised that gigs are not something to be taken for granted. For myself, I'd been going to at least one or two gigs a week since I was 16
Yeah.
years old, and that was suddenly taken away. Do you think people have changed their opinion towards live shows, or even changed the way they behave at live shows these days?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think especially I noticed it especially after the pandemic, like when shows started again. It felt that everybody really, really needed that, and I think that you go to shows a lot, like you said, one or two a week. Like I've been doing the same like since I was a kid, and not that you take them for granted, but it becomes so routine in your life. And then when it's gone, you realize how important that is to you. Seeing live music, being in a room with people that are experiencing it in the same way, and then as a performer, getting to have that. So I did notice that the crowds were it felt extra special, especially right when everything came back, and it still is. But it's almost like there's so many shows that it's hard to have that reaction all the time, I guess. But I definitely did notice that, and as a performer, I noticed it as well. Just like getting on stage and not taking it for granted. It's not just another show. It's like it could be gone very easily.
Now, of course, you guys are going to be heading to Australia this time off the back of your amazing new album, Some of It Was True. Tell us a little bit about how these tracks have been going live since you've been playing these ones live.
That we wrote the album with the intention of being like, we want to be able to play these songs live. We want them to fit in our set list. We want to be able to, we want that to be part of the experience. That's part of the album experience, knowing that you're going to be able to hear them live. And so it's been going over great, and it's been really fun to incorporate them into the set list. And they've been going over amazing. To get some of the biggest reactions of the night, which as a band on their 7th album, it feels like that's kind of a difficult thing to do. So we're pretty excited about that, to have the new songs go over so well, and to just to be able to diversify the set list even more. We have so many songs, but it's really incredible to be able to throw in all these new ones and have them feel at home with all the others.
And this album is kind of special as well. This is an album where you explore people's stories, and there's a really intimate feeling to this album. What was that like for you guys, doing an album like this where you just know that people are going to listen to this and be able to relate to those stories in their own lives?
Sure. I mean, that's the ultimate goal whenever we go to write an album is like, what and why are we saying this? What are we saying? Like, what is the intention behind these songs? And that's really important. We want the songs to be able to connect with people in the way that our favorite albums connected with us, these stories. And, we wanted to expand upon the songwriting and, not just write songs that were directly about our personal lives, but the lives of our friends and our family members and the people around us and the stories that we hear, and take their stories and expand upon them and make them larger. And, with the intention of, hopefully someone out there can find some connection with that. So it's been really humbling and satisfying, and just a really great feeling to hear people connect with the album in that way, and to find that these stories mean a lot to them.
Do you find that a lot with your live shows these days, that people come up to you afterwards and say, hey, this song got me through this kind of situation, or I've listened to the lyrics of this track and that's something I've been going through or I've been through in my life? Do you find that you get a lot more of that these days?
Yeah, and you know what? It seems we've been a band where it seems like we're a very personal band. We write kind of hard on your sleeves kind of songs, and it feels like that's been a thing that's been happening with the band since we started, and it's something that means a lot to us as a band, to be able to be that for someone. And it's with this album, with other albums, it seems that people really connect with it, and that means a lot. And you don't really take it lightly. That's why we continue to make sure that what we're writing is something like, okay, let's make sure that this is meaningful and impactful. That's what to me makes a good album. And
The other big question now as well, 7 albums in, you guys have got such an amazing back catalogue. Is it difficult now to put together a set list, especially when you're coming to a country like Australia that you don't get to come to all the time, when you've got so many amazing tracks there in that back catalogue?
Yeah, absolutely. That's something where, like, a lot of times during the encore, we'll just, ask for request, and everyone in the crowd seems to shout a different song. It's like impossible. And coming to Australia where we don't get to come once a year, things like that, it does make it difficult. I think to solve that, I was already planning a set list in my head. I think we just got to play more songs than we typically do, just to make sure everybody knows, it's we can cover as much as possible, right? So that's the way I'm viewing it.
We kind of touched on it a little bit before about your excitement coming to the country, but how does it make you feel knowing that a country has so embraced you, especially a country on the other side of the world, that you've got to upgrade venues and things like that, and tickets are selling out so quickly. How does that make you feel as an artist, knowing that you've been so embraced by a country on the other side of the world?
I mean, yeah, it's crazy. It's absolutely nuts, and it's a feeling that I never take for granted, and I never lose that feeling. What's kind of hilarious is I remember, I think it was 2010, and we were dying to come to Australia, and I cold called, essentially just cold emailed a bunch of booking agents that I found, like Googled from Australia, being like, here's our album, we'd love to come down, and just got no one answered. And there was one response that was just hilarious of like, do you have any idea how expensive this is? Like, this will never happen, blah, blah, blah. Like, just a harsh rejection letter. And, it's one of those things every time we get to come down, and especially this tour with sizing up the venues and shows selling out, that I remember that rejection letter of being like, man, we've really come a far way, so it's amazing. It's a really great feeling.
Definitely. Well, mate, we are running out of time very, very quickly, so I guess to finish off, what would you like to say to people out there who have already bought tickets to these amazing shows or are thinking about buying tickets to these shows?
First of all, thank you so much for it. Thank you for the support for all these years, and for sticking with the band for this long. And, it really means a lot to us, and we're really, really excited to come down and play.